He was the greatest sage who defeated the demon lord, but for his power he was betrayed and executed. Years later he returns, not as a man, but as the undead king. With his army he begins a new war to restore world order. Will he be able to achieve peace on bones? Let's find out. This story began at the bottom of the Valley of the Dead. Dwight Garvelt, the sage in the past, sat next to a magical ball. He stroked the ball thoughtfully and thought about Claire Barton, the hero in the past. He mentally asked himself, when he built the world she dreamed of, will he see her again? The protagonist remembered again what happened to them. They were standing at the end of a cliff leading to the Valley of the Dead. And he, despite everything, stood next to her and thought that next to him was the most important person for him. Together, 10 years ago, they defeated the Demon King, bringing peace to the world. They were the only ones who dealt with this monster. But because of their power, they were accused of being the ones who could become the next generation of demons. Claire was a hero, and she was the only one he cherished. She is his comrade in arms, with whom he has carried out countless missions, shoulder to shoulder. And now they are shackled and brought to the square for execution. A crowd of people for whom they defeated evil was raging around. These people waved their hands and shouted various curses and swear words. Someone shouted that they should die. Someone cursed them. They were shouted at them that they were a disgrace to the country, that they were traitors. Then the king's herald appeared in the square with a scroll. He stood on a pedestal, unrolled the scroll with the order, and called out their names. He continued that these were the names of those who defeated the demon lord who wanted to plunge the world into darkness. They were both noble people and personified the wisdom of all mankind. But the souls of the former heroes were rotten. They both wanted to become the next demon lords, planning to plunge their world into chaos. And so it was decided to throw them into the Valley of the Dead. Dwight shouted back that it was not true. They had not intended to become demons. Someone had conspired against them. They were the ones who had defeated the demon lord. They were the ones who had saved the world. In response, the people began to shout at him to stop talking nonsense. He was evil. They believed in them. The protagonist got angry and tried to break free. But the shackles did not allow him to do so, and he fell. In despair, he thought that if only he could remove these shackles, he would not be able to use the spell because of them. Then the king himself spoke up. He told them that they were the demon lord's minions, and he had made a mistake by honoring them with the honor of being heroes. He added that only death would be retribution for their sins. The protagonist gnashed his teeth at such injustice and suggested that Claire run away together. But she stood with an inscrutable face, proud, calm. The girl refused him. She said that they wanted peace in the world. If they could achieve this by sacrificing her, she would gladly accept it. If he wanted to live, he could flee alone. They would be afraid to touch him, since they alone had managed to kill the demon lord. Even if he escaped, they would not look for him. Dwight was embarrassed and told her that he had not meant that at all. He simply wanted to continue to be with her in their world. The girl looked at him sadly and said that she was very sorry that she had dragged him into all this. She thanked him for staying with her. He blurted out in response that he should be the one apologizing to her. At that moment, the king ordered their execution, and the guards' spears pierced both of them through and through. Blood gushed out of them like a river. They fell to the ground, and the angry crowd began to throw stones at them. MC asked himself with his last breath, is this what he wanted? Is this what he dreamed of? They were thrown into the Valley of the Dead. In a split second, the protagonist saw the true essence of this world. A long 10 years had passed. Dwight didn't know this, so he wondered how much time had passed. Claire's sweet face surfaced in his memories. Why did she have to die? He didn't remember how many times he screamed, hugging her decomposing body. Everyone who was here was dead. In this valley, he was the only one who took on an unusual form of undead. The protagonist felt a monstrous anger. He would never become a silent corpse. He refused to disappear like this. What went wrong? Why was he here? Why was he holding the decomposed corpse of his first love in his hands? While he was asking himself questions and answering them himself, so as not to lose consciousness for a second, he finally saw the light. Was it her mistake? The world has been rotten for a long time already. Claire had good intentions, but her methods were not quite right. Yes, she was right, but at the same time wrong. Giving in to the crowd, that was her mistake. It was impossible for her peace-loving heart to follow the wrong path. And then he hugged her bones and told her that he would fulfill her last wish. It was his duty as a loyal assistant. But he would bring peace in a much more effective way. He would correct all the filth that was in him, destroy those who had gone astray. But first, he needed to take care of something. In his current state, he could do nothing. He needed power. A lot of power, enough to make the whole world consider him its enemy. He looked around and realized that the miasma of the Valley of the Dead was endless. It was dangerous for living beings, but high-ranking undead could absorb them. He decided to absorb them and thought, well, it's not torture to try. It was hard for him to absorb it, because along with the miasma, the grief of people, their countless memories and experiences, are absorbed. Not everyone can withstand such a volume of information. It was very painful for him. He thought that if he were still a human, his brain would have burned out instantly. That's how painful it was. Dwight fell exhausted and realized that he could not even move a finger. It hurt, but his throat still could not make a sound. After MC came to his senses from the pain, he realized that he had absorbed all the miasma of the Valley of the Dead. The protagonist felt an enormous magical power inside his body. This power surpassed the powers of the demon lord they defeated. He immediately understood how exactly he could use his new powers. The corpses that filled the valley, he turned into his army of skeletons. He walked up to Claire and knelt down in front of her. Hugging her, he thought that he used his power on everyone, so why was she the only one who did not come back to life? The protagonist angrily promised the girl and himself that the first ones he would take revenge on would be those who killed her. They would all definitely get their reward, and if this era does not accept them, then he will rise up against it. He will create a world without suffering. The protagonist gathered his entire army of skeletons, took with him the remains of his beloved Claire, carefully packed in a bundle, and they set out on their journey. At this time, a terrible thunder was heard over the king's palace, and the guards saw the undead in fear. The protagonist stood in front of the guards and thought, this valley, where they were executed under the furious cries of the townspeople, this battle will be the beginning of a new history. And he furiously began his attack. But no matter what the guards did, they could not destroy the undead and his army. Moreover, those whom he had already killed rose again, but they were no longer people, but zombies. And as if on command, they began to destroy those who had been their comrades just minutes ago. The soldiers were panicking. They saw that nothing affected the skeletons, and their dead comrades had turned into their enemies. They tried to call for reinforcements, but it was all in vain. The protagonist was surprised when he saw this picture. The dead were affected by the miasma, and they were turning into ghouls. Perhaps the soldiers were stronger and more experienced in battle, but there were many more skeletons. In an instant, a stream of white bones engulfed the entire battlefield. Before MC realized that he now had not only the skeletons from the Valley of the Dead, but also the soldiers who had joined his army, becoming ghouls. Now it was truly a whole horde. He finished off the last guard who swung at him. The protagonist looked around and saw that there were no living people left. He thought that his work here was finished. Now it was the turn of the city and its inhabitants. Let them wait for him, because he was the one who would wipe them all off the face of the earth. At this time, the chief of the guard came to the king and reported to his majesty that the guards who guard the Valley of the Dead stopped responding. And most importantly, the horde of undead is heading straight for the capital. The king ordered him to gather all the holy mages and prevent the undead from approaching the castle. The patrol reported to the chief that the horde of undead was already on the horizon. He gave them the order to prepare for an attack. The soldiers were indignant, saying, "They are really here, but why are there so many of them?" The protagonist saw the fuss of the soldiers and realized that they learned of their approach and decided to prepare. He thought that the mages and archers who were sitting on the wall were a common strategy used against the undead. Well, they were well prepared. He and his squad of skeletons and ghouls approached the walls of the castle, and arrows flew at them. But all was in vain. The skeletons fell and rose again, terrifying the soldiers. MC thought it was commendable that they took such measures, but they clearly underestimated him and his army. To them, they were just a horde of undead, so they only sent archers. He had destroyed all the soldiers who attacked them. Now he would show them who he really was. Dwight shouted in a menacing voice so that they could all see what he was capable of. He created a powerful vortex ball and broke through the wall that protected the castle from the outside world. The protagonist himself was surprised that he was still strong enough to make a hole in the gate, but compared to the magical power he had when he was alive, he had definitely become stronger. This amount of power is something incredible. When he made his way into the city with his squad, all the townspeople began to run away. They screamed for help, knocked down others, even children, trying to save each other, trampling each other. The protagonist looked at all this and thought about Claire. Was this what she was trying to protect so fiercely? They were all so happy about their execution, but until now they still did not know the whole truth. He turned and saw a man who was trying to cover the children with his body. He shouted at MC not to come near them and called him a demon. The protagonist smirked back at him. He was a demon then. Well, he would become what they thought he was. He approached the castle walls and saw hundreds of arrows aimed at him by archers. The arrowheads glowed, meaning they were filled with sacred magic power. This was the best weapon against the undead, but he would not let them hurt him anymore. The archers fired all the arrows at him at once, and a smoke screen appeared. He felt his body being cleansed and his bones falling apart. It was painful. When the smoke cleared, the guards saw that he was gone. They joyfully shouted that they had destroyed the leader of the undead. They had done it. But they did not have to rejoice for long, because before their eyes he rose again. He thought, well, as he had expected, it did not harm him. His entire horde of undead, each of them contains a part of his magic. Therefore, even if his body is destroyed, he can easily move to another. In other words, as long as he had his horde of undead, they would not be able to destroy him. The head of the guard shouted to his subordinates not to be afraid of him and to continue the attack, but MC thought that was enough of experiments for today. He ordered his horde to attack the guard and devour them. At that time, he carefully picked up the bundle with the remains of his beloved girl from the ground. MC noted with satisfaction that they did not harm the bundle. Even his protective magic became stronger after his death. At that time, the king's army tried to quickly raise the bridge to prevent the undead from entering the castle. The protagonist watched them and thought that all their attempts were pointless. His very existence was different from the others. Even if they tried to destroy his physical body, he could still turn the tide of battle in his favor. It was nothing for him to deal with those who blocked his path. And he and his horde moved towards the castle. The guards tried their best to hold back the gates leading to the castle, but their forces were unequal, and all the evil spirits eventually broke through the defense. While his horde dealt with the king's army, he entered the castle and saw no one there. The protagonist thought that he had been here many times, so he was familiar with the structure of the room. MC realized that the king was in his chambers on the top floor. Wow, even when he attacked the capital, he did not escape. The protagonist was sure that the king hoped for his soldiers, that they would be able to cope with all this. What a fool he was, and still a king. Dwight began to climb the stairs to the king's chambers, but suddenly he discovered several layers of magical barrier on the walls. And there was also a curse that would pass to anyone who dared to touch it without permission. Well, this is very clever. As it turned out, the king is not so stupid, but he will not be safe when he, the undead, is next to him. He destroyed all the magic defenses along with the curse with one kick and entered the ruler's chambers. The king called him a cursed undead and asked him what he wanted. The undead looked at him carefully and said his name. He asked him if it meant anything to him. The king looked at the protagonist in shock and could not believe his eyes. He asked him how this was possible. After all, he was dead. He executed him 10 years ago. MC grinned at him in response, so it happened 10 years ago. He agreed with him that it was hard to believe. Moreover, he himself was surprised. At that time, his guards, who had become ghouls, captured the king. He screamed to let him go. Don't they know who he is? The protagonist answered him that he had returned from the Valley of the Dead to bring order to this rotten world. The king did not believe him and screamed that he was lying, because countless people were executed in that valley and none of them turned into undead. Dwight assured him that he didn't care at all. He held out the bundle with the girl's remains and asked him why he made them out to be traitors. Claire didn't deserve to die. She always prayed for this world. She didn't want war more than anyone. And that's why she and no one else deserves to be called a great hero. The king muttered in response that that's why she became a hindrance. The protagonist asked him again what he just said. The ruler continued that after the death of the demon lord, the world changed dramatically. It no longer needed heroes. They only became a hindrance. People with such enormous power were no longer useful to the king. They could even become a threat to the kingdom itself. The protagonist was furious at what he heard. So the ruler executed her only because it was profitable for him? He confirmed MC's words, because he is the king. Dwight laughed at him and he continued that it was their own fault. They should have been obedient and allowed him to use them. The protagonist thought that the ruler was crazy, and he had already heard enough from him. So he ordered his ghouls to remove him. The king resisted as best he could. He shouted out in fits and starts that he was right when he executed them, that he did it for the good of the kingdom. These were his last words before he died. Suddenly, MC saw a weapon hanging on the wall. He walked up to it and recognized Claire's sword. He thought that it was a very precious memory, and the protagonist decided to take it with him. He picked it up and it seemed like it was his own sword. He didn't even have to swing it to be sure. Perhaps the miasma transferred all the memories and knowledge of all the dead to him. In fact, he received all the techniques of wielding the hero's sword. But does he have the right to use it? The protagonist remembered her last words when she thanked him for always being by her side. He decided that this sword would be her parting gift to him. He walked out of the king's chambers and saw that some of the townspeople were still alive. MC thought about how the capital had fallen, and after 10 long years, it was finally over. Now he could move on to the next step. He told his horde that this place would be their base from now on. The protagonist thought about how ironic it was. Who would have thought that the sage who participated in the destruction of the demon lord would turn into an undead and attack people? No one knows how things can turn out in this life, and so he created a country of the undead. At this time, a carriage drove up to the castle. The man sitting in it saw a cloud of smoke over the city and exclaimed in bewilderment, "What could this be?" The protagonist was trying to drink the liquid from the bottle at that moment, but it was leaking out. He assumed that he could neither eat nor drink now, and threw the bottle away. When the MC went out onto the balcony, he saw that all the remaining people were moving like zombies. At the moment, thick clouds of miasma were stretching across the entire capital, making it an unsuitable environment for living organisms. Just yesterday, the streets of the city were bustling with life, but now the city looks like a valley of the dead. This gave the protagonist a lot to think about. However, he did not regret at all that he did it with his own hands. When evil appears in the world, humanity unites against it. Humanity must fight for survival. The evil known as the Demon Lord was just such a threat. Everyone wanted to defeat it so much that they formed an alliance with other countries. The balance of equilibrium was not disturbed by anyone else. They themselves disturbed it. The idea that destroying such an evil will eventually lead to peace was wrong from the start. The only thing that awaited the world was a civil war, brutal and endless battles between countries. As soon as the evil represented by the Demon Lord was destroyed, these countries suddenly grabbed each other's throats. The word peace ceased to exist in people's minds, and real peace will come when they are ruled by immortal evil. Therefore, the protagonist decided that he would become a demon and not let anyone know about his true intentions. He remembered how many innocent people were executed when he was alive to please the ruler. MC thought that he would also not let anyone defeat him, since he wanted to instill fear in this world forever. This is a necessary evil that the new Demon Lord will become. And if he has decided that he will be such a ruler, then he needs an army to confirm this title. He will also need servants. Although he already had many servants, he needed one with magical powers. Dwight decided that if he combined the dead together, he would get one powerful undead with a will of its own. This is one of the abilities he received in the Valley of the Dead, and he immediately began to create this specimen. Gathering all the dead together, he created the strongest skeleton from them. The skeleton asked MC intimidatingly, "Did he create it?" Dwight realized that he managed to summon such a powerful undead. He has a huge amount of magical power, as he thought. Without a doubt, he could rival the Demon Lord they once defeated. MC confirmed the skeleton's guess that he created it, but he realized that he could not quite control it. Luckily for him, this monster at least talks. If they can communicate, then the protagonist hoped that they will be able to negotiate with him. At that moment, the skeleton let out a menacing, frightening roar and attacked MC with lightning. The protagonist thought that the skeleton had gone berserk and that he would hardly be able to negotiate with it. He accepted its attack, and a fight ensued between them. Finally, the skeleton admitted that he was its creator. The protagonist noted that the monster had turned the miasma into a pair of wings, and had also acquired the ability to attack with lightning. He was doing a pretty good job of controlling the miasma. Perhaps MC would not have had a chance against him if the demon had come at him with the current level of control that Dwight had. He let it rage for a little while longer, and then he got tired of it. He attacked the monster with a deadly whirlwind. After all, he was called a sage. The skeleton appreciated his magnificent attack. Well, now let MC see his true power. He attacked him with his magical lightning. Each blow had an incredible destructive power. His magic could truly be called high level. Such magic can destroy an army of 10,000 in the blink of an eye. The demon laughed and asked the protagonist how he liked his lightning. Was he impressed? He told him that it was a good show, but such an attack could be blocked even by the most low-level techniques. He continued that the generosity of the Valley of the Dead is truly great. When he was alive, he bragged about how he had incredible magical power. But he was still a human, and a human has a limit to how strong he can become. But now everything is different. Now he is stronger than ever. And the monster first needs to learn manners. The protagonist attacked him with all the techniques he had. The demon had a hard time, and he tried to attack him back. But MC advised him not to even try. Dwight tried to calm him down and told him that he did not want to fight him. He wanted the monster to listen to him. The skeleton didn't even answer him. He just started attacking the MC again. The protagonist took out his Lady Claire's sword and asked her permission to use the skills she had granted him. Swinging the sword, he seemed to see a girl, and she was helping him. He attacked the monster and pierced it with his weapon. The demon fell down powerlessly and lay motionless. The protagonist realized that he had absorbed all of his magic in the miasma that the skeleton had. Now he had no chance to fight back against the MC. He asked him to finish him off because he had lost to him. But Dwight told him that he wouldn't do that. Otherwise, why would he have created him? The monster asked the MC what he meant. The protagonist expressed his desire for him to become his subordinate. He could completely subjugate him according to his will. But if possible, he would prefer to give him freedom of choice. Is he ready to join him? The protagonist understood that the undead had a high ego, but their fighting skills were simply impeccable. He would be grateful if he would help him from now on. And the monster accepted his offer. 3 days passed, and most of the ruins and corpses were removed from the castle grounds. MC's subordinates did an incredible job. There was a knock on his office door. An undead came and invited his demon lord to follow him to the dining room to eat before his food got cold. The protagonist chuckled and replied that he could neither drink nor eat. Wasn't that obvious? The demon was embarrassed and said that he had made the worst mistake in the history of mankind. He offered his master to at least pick out an outfit for him. MC looked at the big guy and thought, how could everything turn out like this? Grom became his devoted follower. His rebelliousness instantly disappeared, as if it had never been there. Now he tries to please him in every way. Just recently, Grom told him that he admired the goal that the protagonist was pursuing. He promised that he would serve him and swore an oath to be his right hand in everything. He also liked the name that MC gave him, and now he introduced himself to everyone as Grom. The protagonist told him that he was leaving for some supplies, and he should wait for him here without question. Grom was indignant. He wanted his master to entrust this matter to him. The demon lord should not waste his precious time on such trifles. He will do whatever his master wants. He immediately jumped up to his lord to brush off a speck of dust. MC thought that he was quite quick and smart. He was born from miasma and hidden malice, having adopted some of the experience and memories of the dead. This allowed him to develop a completely new personality. Despite his oddities, the protagonist considered him his most trusted subordinate. He can confidently say that Grom will never betray him or stab him in the back. Now MC should think about the fact that this morning he announced his existence to the entire kingdom. In the message, he also wrote that if they all swear allegiance to him, he will not attack their lands. They all had better follow him, because he does not want to cause a massacre. He wondered how the kingdom would react to the appearance of a new demon lord. And also, how would the neighboring countries react? He was sure that they would send forces to enslave him, and most likely they were already recruiting mages from within the state. He knew that he needed to prepare an entourage worthy of the Lord. And he needed allies like Grom, who had personality. In any case, they are still far from their goal, and they need to try hard to make it a reality. The protagonist approached the pedestal on which the remains of his beloved Claire lay. He thought bitterly that even with his current abilities he could not turn her into an undead. Perhaps her soul refuses to return, or it is his conflicting emotions that hinder him. In any case, he knew that he would do everything possible to bring her back to life. Grom called him to inform him of the receipt of a report. MC asked him if anyone had already taken the first steps against them. The demon confirmed his fears. The territory closest to them sent its army against them. It is hastily heading to their royal harbor. As the protagonist suspected, they want to take back their precious capital. The king was dead, and the heart of the state was destroyed. The nobles were not going to stand idle. MC was worried about the fact that the opponents were able to gather an army in just 3 days. Grom asked him what orders his master would give him. The protagonist answered that he would go there personally. He would show them that the demon lord had revived. If he wanted to be considered a threat to the entire world, he would have to make them an example of his cruelty. The protagonist told his subordinate that he was leaving him in charge here, and Grom replied that he would protect his master's castle with all his might. Dwight thought that it would be better if they surrendered and acknowledged him as the leader, and with these thoughts he was about to leave. He was stopped by a demon, asking him to wait a minute. After that, the protagonist went out to meet his opponents. He saw that there were a lot of them, but he met them with proud determination. His beautiful outfit, which Grom had given him when he stopped him for a minute, fluttered in the wind like a flag. Meanwhile, his faithful assistant was flying with another report, and a girl noticed him. It was Luciana, one of the 4 heavenly kings. She was amazed that even though it was a skeleton, it still flew with the grace of a bird. She became interested in the scroll the demon was carrying and took it. She read what was written on it, smirking. So, a new demon lord? Well, she had been waiting for this for a long time. Meanwhile, the protagonist continued to survey the enemy army. He estimated that there were about 20,000 of them, and they had also created a sacred barrier around themselves. It seemed like they were serious about taking back the royal capital. But how did they manage to gather such a large army in just 3 days? He couldn't just stand by and watch them march towards their goal. He was not so kind as to let them do that. The protagonist decided to crush their lust for battle right then and there. After that, they would simply not want to fight him, thus ending the battle for both sides. This would be the best outcome possible. He felt the thirst for revenge overtake him, like when he came to take revenge on the king. This trembling in his hands from the anticipation of battle was unmistakable. MC clenched his fist in rage. They would be an example. His hand had to be steady so he could kill them all. He remembered his battle with Grom, when the monster controlled miasma without problems. Now it was time to use the same on the enemies. It would be worth seeing how it would all turn out. MC launched the first attack on the enemy. He destroyed their sacred barrier, and the enemies panicked. They understood that if the barrier was destroyed, they would be in great trouble. They tried to attack MC in response, but they could no longer protect their barrier. No one in the squad could understand what exactly had happened. They were routed in the blink of an eye. The painful groan of dying soldiers could be heard above the battlefield. The protagonist watched as the damaged warriors turned into ghouls. They attacked the surviving soldiers who tried to escape. MC thought that he managed to merge the magic with the miasma. Now all that was left was for all the undead to come to life and start turning other people into the dead one by one. He was used to seeing this, so it did not cause any emotions in him. He looked at the battlefield again and decided that this would be enough. Those soldiers who managed to escape, they fled. Dwight did not catch up with them, let them spread the word about how powerful he was. It had been 10 years since the death of the previous demon lord. Now the whole world should know that a new threat has appeared that can exterminate all of humanity. He teleported into the air and continued his observation from there. When he was alive, his teleportation ability could only take him to places that were only in his line of sight, but in his new body, nothing limits him anymore. He saw his new army getting into formation and thought that owning an army of 20,000 fighters was quite convenient. In addition, they have incredible strategic value. He did not even feel the depletion of his magical power. His capabilities became limitless when he turned into an undead. The protagonist ordered his new army to head to the Valley of the Dead. He did it instinctively. As soon as they threw themselves into the abyss, he felt his power increase. The strength began to overflow him. MC understood that this valley was the source of his powers. Apparently, there is some connection between this fact and why his very existence was fueled by miasma. He decided that from now on, he will sacrifice the undead more often. After all, if he received these powers from the Valley of the Dead, then he probably exists thanks to it. At this time, the surviving soldiers safely reached their master and reported the whole situation to him. They stuttered and trembled with fear when they told him how powerful the new demon lord was. MC assumed that the neighboring rulers had sent the same army to other territories, but by now they should have realized that they could not defeat him with numbers. At this point, humans cannot defeat him. They will only die in vain. He just wants humanity to realize that this world is in danger in the person of the demon lord. Then he can maintain peace in the world. He teleported to the capital, but did not go straight to the castle. He wanted to walk along the streets of the royal city. He was hurt by the depressing view of the capital, layers of miasma and ghouls everywhere, but he did not regret choosing this path. The sage is no more. Here and now there is only the immortal demon lord. The protagonist approached the castle and did not recognize it. It looked completely different than when MC left to meet the enemy. With the thought of what could have happened, he ran into the castle and immediately understood everything. Grom cried fiery tears so much that he set fire to the handkerchief he was wiping his tears with. He had been watching MC's heroic act with the help of the Farsight spell all this time and was completely delighted by the master's magnificence. The protagonist asked him why the appearance of the castle had changed so much. The monster replied that he had changed the design of the castle to match his master's powerful aura. He had also worked on the defenses so that uninvited guests would not visit them, but if his master didn't like all this, he would return everything to its place. The protagonist looked at his subject and thought that if he had a tail, he would be wagging it now. Although he changed the appearance of the castle as he saw fit, various techniques were also used to strengthen its defenses. Anyone who entered the castle without an invitation would be burned alive on the spot. Just by the way Grom managed to do this in such a short time, one can tell that his strength is incredible, and his motivation and determination are overflowing. Although you can't tell from his behavior and his words, this creature inspires incredible fear. The protagonist answered him that he himself did not take into account that the castle would need protection, and he was a good man for taking care of it, and MC thanked his faithful assistant. Grom beamed with pleasure at the praise of his master. He was very happy to hear such things from him. He added that it was worth all the effort he put into arranging the castle, and he was happy that he could be of use to the great Lord of Demons. Dwight told him that he was also happy to have such a good subordinate. But next time, before changing something, let him consult with him. The demon agreed with him, promising this. Suddenly, they both felt someone else's negative aura. They realized that uninvited guests had come to them. They reached the gates of the capital and saw that a horde of werewolves was standing in front of them. Grom noted that this was a huge army, and it was strange that they were able to spot them only at the last moment. The protagonist replied that most likely they used some kind of disguise to hide their presence. He advised his assistant not to worry about it, calling this army a pathetic bunch of trash. The demon asked him if he knew them. MC confirmed that he knew them. He crossed paths with them when he was still alive. They saw the leader of this army. She looked at them defiantly and smirked. Grom assumed that this succubus was their leader, but how did his master know them? MC explained to him that Luciana is the late demon lord's subordinate, one of the 4 heavenly kings. The demon was surprised. The late demon lord is a former heavenly king? What does this even mean? Dwight told him that they would talk about it later. First, they should greet their guests. He asked her what brought her to his domain. In response, she asked him if he was the new demon lord. The protagonist confirmed this and added that he had proclaimed himself as such. The girl dismissively drawled that she understood everything. Grom was outraged by her behavior and growled, "How dare this brat talk to his master like that?" He promised to rip her head off if she continued to behave like that. She feigned fear, as if to say what terrible things he was telling her. But then she looked closely at MC and recognized him as the sage Dwight. Grom was again outraged by her defiant behavior and wanted to teach her a lesson, but the protagonist stopped him. He told him that he would figure everything out himself. He turned to the girl and told her that they had not seen each other for a long time. The girl agreed with him and added that they had not seen each other since Claire cut her in half. He looked at her and understood that her black robe and stately figure, beautiful face and seductive look, these are all her weapons. She uses all this to distract the attention of her opponents. He knew many people who fell victim to Lucian's poison. She continued that Dwight really changed a lot. He aged. He answered her that she must have known. He became like this because of the Valley of the Dead. The girl nodded in agreement and said that they were a little tired and her guys needed to rest. Maybe the protagonist would let them in? MC allowed them to come in, but Grom was not sure that this was the right decision of his master. He told him that if these guests behaved suspiciously, he would grind them all into dust. When they all entered the city, the girl felt uneasy from the large number of miasmas and ghouls. But she did not show it to anyone with her appearance. On the contrary, she laughed and told MC that he really changed, and she liked him better like this. She asked him if there was too much miasma in the city. It even affected monsters, and showed him her army. Her army was suppressed, and it was obvious that they were in bad shape. The protagonist thought that he hadn't thought about it, since only the undead lived here. However, such a level of miasma concentration could be dangerous even for monsters, and he needed to deal with it later. They approached the castle, and MC indicated that only she could enter further, and everyone else would have to wait outside. They entered the castle, and he asked Lucian again what she was doing here. Grom looked at the guest with distrust. She responded that he was very suspicious, and she and Dwight had known each other for a long time. The demon objected to her, saying that his master could not be acquainted with a brat like her. MC calmed the servant, confirming the girl's words about their long-standing acquaintance, but nothing more, because they were enemies. She noted the protagonist's line about being enemies. The MC addressed her saying that the demon lord she served had died, and it had been 10 years since his death. Therefore, he saw no reason for them to be at each other's throats. Luciana replied that he spoke wisely, but why didn't he consider the possibility that she had come here to avenge the deceased demon lord? He replied that in that case he would turn them into undead and put their corpses to good use. She laughed back and replied that she was joking. They were here because they simply wanted to serve under the new demon lord. The protagonist asked why she wanted that. The girl explained that after the demon lord's death, the remnants of their army were destroyed by humans. Although they tried to fight back, it was no use, since their commander-in-chief, the demon lord, was not there. At that time, she was one of the heavenly queens of the lord's army. After the defeat, she decided to lie low with her army. They lived like hermits. It was their only way to escape from people. They hoped that one day a new lord would appear. If he did not appear, she would become one herself. But he did not need to worry about it anymore. He was stronger than the previous lord. She could not even imagine that the sage Dwight would become one. She and the hero were executed then. But what happened to them then? He told her that it was an unpleasant story. and he briefly told her about what happened then. She burst out laughing and said, "How interesting it turns out. People who rebelled against their own heroes who killed the Lord of Demons were destroyed by another Lord of Demons, whom they themselves created. She called these people a bunch of useless idiots." She noted that MC had an interesting way of thinking, but how come he hadn't destroyed them all yet? He told her that all his efforts were aimed at maintaining peace in the world. He had wanted this while he was still a human, and even now he was not going to betray his ideals. Besides, this was Claire's dream too. Luciana understood him and his goal, but what was he going to do next? They also wanted peace, so they would lend him their power and technology. In return, she asked him for the royal city as a reward, and then they would find excellent servants for him. The protagonist noted that their interests coincided, and both sides would indeed benefit from this. At this point, Grom asked his master for a moment to talk to him alone. MC agreed, and the demon asked him if he really trusted this girl. The protagonist told him that he knew what Luciana was capable of. He doesn't trust her completely either, so they should keep an eye on her. Of course, it would be a bummer if they started destroying humanity as his subordinates, but her demon army would be very useful to them. He continued that they were just going to use each other. And that's it, nothing more and nothing less. Grom expressed his agreement with his master's decision. MC told him that when the time came, he would need his power. The demon laughed and told him that he would dedicate every ounce of his power to help him. They returned to the girl and MC apologized to her for making her wait. He announced to her his decision to accept them all. He promises them a safe haven, and in return, they will take part in his war against humanity. Luciana expressed her gratitude to him. She hugged him and asked him to take care of her. He wondered why she was acting like that. The girl told him that she liked strong men. It was the same with the previous demon lord. She became his subordinate because she fell in love with the aura that surrounded him. Grom was furious when he saw her behavior. How dare she disturb his master? He asked the protagonist not to let her fool him, because this woman was definitely a real nasty thing. The girl laughed and told him that he seemed a little special, but he was still very far from the level of the demon lord, and she was only interested in the best. Grom advised her to keep her mouth shut, otherwise he would turn her pride and beauty into something ugly. She answered him, "Let him come. She will show him her special attitude." They grappled in a fight. The demon shouted that he would turn her into dust with his magic. She retorted that she would put him in his rightful place. The protagonist looked at them and thought that he would not let them do what they wanted. He decided to go and inform Lucian's companions about their agreement. After a while, they decided to capture a neighboring city. Inside, one of the knights shouted to his army that they must stop the enemy right here and not let them break through at any cost. The knights fought fiercely against the army of undead and demons, but it was all in vain. The protagonist rose into the air and thought, he now has 120 subordinates under his control. They are capturing a city in the north of the kingdom. He allowed Lucian's people to join the battle in this skirmish. He is purposefully destroying the kingdom using his movement magic. So far so good. Grom, fighting with the knights, shouted at them, "Let these pathetic humans bow before the Lord of Demons." MC called out to him and noted that their goal at the moment is not to destroy them. Let him not go too far. He thought at the same time that in their business, an uncontrolled attack can end up destroying everyone. Their goal is to make them realize the threat of the demon lord and at the same time lay a foundation for humanity to cooperate with naturally. Grom told him that if he wanted to subjugate them, then this number of fighters should be more than enough for them to understand how great the difference in strength was. He returned to the fight, shouting at the opponents that he would show them his boundless strength. And MC thought, it's not like he lost sight of their goal. The battle continued, and after some time, the lord of this city heard a cry that the enemies had broken through to the city. He shouted to his soldiers to hold them off. At this time, the protagonist broke into his chambers. While the lord screamed at him not to come near him, MC thought that this lord was willing to sacrifice his domain for safety, since it became clear that the city was doomed. He is not afraid to show what interests him. In the ideal world that Dwight was striving for, there was no room for such behavior. The lord continued to insult the MC, and then Grom appeared. He heard the idiot insulting his lord and shouted at him not to think that his death would be painless. But the protagonist pushed the demon away, telling him that he would deal with him himself. He pounced on the lord and destroyed him. He squeezed his heart in his hand and thought that selfish people as gloomy as this freak of a ruler would be wiped off the face of the earth as an example to others. He did not want to see people drag each other down. Suddenly, he saw a man who was hugging two children in fear. The protagonist told him that if he wanted to avoid the same fate as the lord, then he should submit to him. By doing so, he could save his own and his children's lives. After some time, after several repeated invasions, the feudal lords quickly submitted to the new Lord of Monsters. Now, the territories in the interior that they had conquered near the fallen capital were considered part of the Demon Lord's domain. This was mainly because he had invaded almost all the cities in the kingdom, even if it was on the surface. They were allowed to continue their normal lives as before, without their interference. But submission is a prerequisite for normal life. As more and more people come up with a plan to destroy the protagonist, people should put aside their differences and unite with the common goal of overthrowing the Demon Lord. Dwight and his army returned to the capital, and Luciana noted that he was very fast. The protagonist thought that their combined forces of ogres and undead were absolutely incredible. The undead could break through on their own, and thanks to the others, they were able to besiege the territories much faster. The presence of the monster army that the girl was leading certainly made a big difference. He told the girl out loud that they were able to solve all the problems better than they had originally planned. It's also because they're great subordinates. Luciana blushed and told him that they were. She trained them herself and was very happy that they helped him. She invited him to have tea together, but Grom protested that his master should not accept her invitation. He was sure that she had ulterior motives. She agreed with him, deliberately goading him that it could be called that. Grom became even more angry that she wanted to take his master away from him. The protagonist asked them to shut up and added that they could flirt later. They both shouted at him that there was no flirting between them, and they both calmed down immediately. He looked at them. It seemed that these two were getting along to some extent. He mused that with the best troops under his command, it was only a matter of time before he would control the entire kingdom. From now on, personal lands would turn into battlefields. This was the beginning of a great war. After a while, the situation developed in such a way that at the moment there was no active action outside the country. Due to the fact that the damage inflicted by the undead is limited to the borders of the kingdom, the neighboring countries took a wait-and-see attitude. It seemed that they even liked the fact that a new demon lord had appeared. Therefore, the protagonist decided to go on the offensive, let them not think that it would not affect them. Grom gathered everyone in the hall and began a war council regarding the future domain of the Demon King. He sarcastically asked Lucian if she was against it. She retorted to him to continue. He put a monocle on his eye. She ridiculed him. It did not suit him. Grom shouted at her that she was a scoundrel, and they again clashed in a verbal dispute. The protagonist asked the girl not to incite the demon. She agreed to this. The monster continued that now most of the kingdom was captured by the Demon Lord. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the conquest of the country is practically complete. Of course, the border areas and the lands of some aristocrats are not yet in their hands, but they are cut off from supply routes, so their capitulation is only a matter of time. Then they will strike at neighboring countries. No matter how you look at it, the area of their dominion is quite small, and most likely that is why the rulers of the countries do not pay attention to their outrages yet. And among the kingdoms, there is one that requires immediate intervention, namely, this small state. It is adjacent to the southwestern part of the kingdom and has been acting suspiciously lately. The protagonist said that he had already heard something from Lucian. The girl replied that according to her information, this small country has gathered an army on the border of the kingdom. It seems that they are preparing to liberate the capital and are striving to expand their own territories. The only thing that worried her was the quality of their equipment. It is very likely that they are receiving military support from outside, which means that there is some state that is secretly pulling the strings. Only it is not known who exactly had a hand in this, but they cannot ignore these plans either. Grom added, for the sake of the future, they must strike first. They are waiting for the master's decision. MC thought, people need to understand that the threat in the person of the Demon Lord will hang over the whole world. It does not matter who manipulates that country. Their destruction is the first step to achieving peace. He said, everything is decided, they will burn them to the ground. Grom shouted happily, he expected nothing less from the Lord. Luciana happily added, she will also use all her strength. The protagonist said, as for the plan, they will invade and occupy it in one fell swoop. And then they will reveal the identities of those who are helping them. After a while, battles between demons began. MC thought, preparing for the upcoming battle, the demons themselves conducted training battles. An incredibly good decision on their part. Since they appeared in their ranks, noticeable changes have occurred in the kingdom. The miasma enveloping the capital has concentrated around the castle. Now the orcs can live here without any problems. In addition, whole crowds of undead are waiting in the wings in the basement of the castle. and the warehouses of the city. Polluted and infected with miasma areas have been cleaned up. Now they serve for the benefit of the capital. He must reciprocate their enthusiasm. After a while, the protagonist noticed the boiling life in the city. Luciana, watching with him, happily noted that the city's development is in full swing. Over these 10 years, they have learned a lot about agriculture and construction. Otherwise, they simply could not survive. Without the harmful effects of miasma, these lands are perfect for life. MC replied, "Of course, after all, this is the former capital." Even though he attacked this place, he thought that they had started to revive the city in order to improve the quality of life. Suddenly, the protagonist noticed a man among the crowd and pointed at him in bewilderment. Luciana explained that they were her slaves. They seemed to have settled in well in the new place. The protagonist thought about it. People and demons get along together. In life, he never even dreamed of such a thing. He wants peace, and even if he has taken such a bizarre form, he is happy. Now they are his people. He will protect them from enemies that can invade them. This truce was possible only because the controlled territory is very modest. Dreaming of expanding it to the scale of the whole world is very utopian. However, sooner or later it will happen. For peace to come to the whole world, it must be controlled by universal evil. MC approached the image of the heroine and thought about it. Thanks to frequent raids, his strength has increased, and yet he still cannot resurrect her. I want to believe that if I build the world she wanted, then he will be able to see her again. Only he can do it. Suddenly Grom called out to him and noted that it was time. Was he unwell? The protagonist began to walk with him and answered, he was simply lost in thought. The protagonist went out onto the balcony and, seeing a huge crowd of creatures, noted that it was an impressive sight. Grom said that each of them was eagerly awaiting his order. Silence. The demon lord speaks. Let them listen carefully. MC thought, loving battles, wanting to thank him for the kindness he had shown, seeking revenge on people for what they had done. Each person who came had their own purpose for arriving, but everyone had one thing to do. He began his speech, saying that once upon a time there lived a sage. Together with the hero, he survived many deadly battles and eventually defeated the demon lord. It doesn't matter how he ended his life. The main thing he learned from it was one truth. This world is wrong. They are its victims, creatures sifted out by the natural flow of time. Do people like them have any way to resist this world? The answer is yes. Since this world has rejected them, they must trample it. It's time to trample it into the ground. Let them soak their bodies and souls in evil and become the makers of history. The new demon lord is coming. The creatures enthusiastically let out a battle cry in agreement with the protagonist. He continued that they will become absolute evil. Are they ready for this? The monsters greeted his words and questioned enthusiastically. They responded with agreement. MC told them that they are the vassals of the current demon lord. Nothing should hold them back. Let them give free rein to their instincts. He thought that this would be enough to sow panic among the people. When the protagonist returned to the castle, Grom told him with admiration that his speech was great, and he admired him. MC told him that he only raised their morale. They did not know his true goal. The demon asked him if he was sure that it was worth hiding from them. Dwight did not think that they could find out about it, but even their allies should not know about it. He thought that after assessing the current situation, he decided to tell about the true peace in the whole world to a small circle of his close associates. If people found out about it, his authority as the Lord of Demons would be shaken. Then he would not be able to inflict universal horror and the threat of destruction on humanity. Grom thoughtfully said that his master chose an extremely difficult path. In response, MC asked him if he thought that the protagonist was stupid. The demon obsequiously replied that he didn't mean that. There was simply no master kinder than him. Dwight laughed at the words of his subject. Meanwhile, in another city, a young man was sitting in chains in a dungeon. He's tired of hanging around here, and it's unlikely that anything interesting will happen. At this time, the protagonist was getting ready for another campaign, and Grom reported to him that all preparations were complete. MC praised him and said that he would remain in charge here. The demon assured his master that he could rely on him. He would drive all the enemies away. Luciana mockingly asked MC, would this knuckle really cope? What if, when they returned, the capital would be occupied? Grom again fell for her mockery, and a verbal altercation ensued between them. The protagonist barked at them both to shut up. He noticed that they had become completely relaxed. Dwight looked at his army, 1,500 undead and 200 demons, a total of 1,700 combat units. A laughable number, considering that they were planning to besiege an entire country. However, his presence adds significant weight to his army. He entrusted Grom and everyone else with the defense of the capital. Luciana told MC to rely on her. She would protect him. She also told Grom to guard the capital well, and the demon did not even argue with her on this. She turned to the protagonist again. Would he take the honor of giving the first order? The protagonist addressed his army that their time had come. He had nothing more to add. Let them stay alive and glorify them. At this time, on land and water, the soldiers of that country lined up to defend their land. The protagonist and Luciana saw them, and the girl was amazed that they were walking in even rows. She was surprised that they were able to transfer so many people at once. They are in for a very tough fight. MC thought that they trusted the girl's army to scout out the enemy country. They were originally planning to attack suddenly. But their plan was doomed to fail. He told her that if they couldn't even do that, they couldn't claim to be the universal evil. She asked him if he would offer them to surrender. MC told her that of course he would like to do it without bloodshed. He addressed the enemy army that they were the army of the Demon Lord, and their army was the one with whom they would have to cross swords. However, he was ready to offer them peace. But the enemy army didn't even listen to him, and with a call to remove them, they rushed into the attack. The protagonist gave the order to all his troops to begin the offensive. Let the magic division attack everything at once. The enemy was determined not to let them approach the country. Luciana asked MC if it seemed that bloodshed was unavoidable. He answered that, unfortunately, no. She said sadly, she said that people were fools and they hardly had a choice. The protagonist answered that he knew it himself, but they themselves rejected their offer. He shouted to his army to bring down all their destructive power on the enemy. The Navy army received the order to fire at the undead. When the enemy saw that the skeletons were trying to swim to them, they began to laugh at them. Their commander shouted that the undead were drowning on their own. What stupid creatures they were. They definitely couldn't reach them. But they underestimated the army of the new Demon Lord. His army suddenly appeared near the ship and the warriors attacked it. A hard battle ensued, but in the end, the ship was sunk along with those who were on it. Luciana laughed when she saw the result. She noted that it was a beautiful picture and took out a bottle of wine. Protagonist wondered why she brought this with her. She told him that it was more fun to fight like that. He asked her to take the matter more seriously. MC looked at the remains of the sinking enemy ship and decided not to interfere any further. Let his army be confident in its strength, even when he was gone. Now it needed a heady, dizzying victory. Dwight and the girl moved towards the bridge to see how their army was doing. On the way, the girl told MC that she was always serious. Succubi do not get drunk from wine, she is intoxicated from the beautiful action that she is witnessing now. The protagonist said, looking at his army in battle, that they captured the channel. At this rate, it is not far to the country's territory. Luciana expressed regret that there is not a single worthy representative among the humans. MC realized that the enemy intended to capture the royal harbor. However, their troops were not able to do this. They probably carried out this attack under pressure from someone, and they need to find out whose. He thought that in the royal castle, they could probably find some evidence. They would deal with those who stuck their noses where it didn't belong. They went to the castle to get evidence. On the way, MC thought that the enemy forces were too insignificant to pacify the Demon Lord. Therefore, most likely, they are achieving something else. But what? They entered the castle grounds, and Dwight suggested that the girl crush the rebels to smithereens. This is the best they can do to prevent any rebellions. She agreed, but said that it was somehow boring. Even if it is small, it is still a country. There must be strong fighters? He answered her that in his lifetime, people capable of resisting an entire army of demons could be counted on the fingers. He continued that it was them, but then the girl interrupted him and added that they couldn't have done it without him and the hero. Was that what he wanted to say? He remained silent in response, but she was right. MC thought that despite the fact that he had seen many battles in the kingdom, he had only met one hero. Luciana said that as far as she knew, not a single hero had appeared in the last 10 years. She dreamily drawled that those were glorious times. He assumed that she meant the times when she served the previous Demon Lord. The girl confirmed his words and added that they were a lot of fun back then. And Dwight was so handsome back then. He got angry and asked her not to call him that. Luciana was surprised he had abandoned his human name. MC told her that it didn't matter at all. The girl said with conviction that he was a person, and not some demon lord. Why did he perceive himself as a tool and nothing more? He muttered back that he wasn't interested in worldly concerns, he was only interested in achieving his goals. Suddenly, the girl grabbed his face, he got scared and asked her to let him go. But she demanded that he swear to value himself as a person. MC told her in response that he didn't have time for that now. He needed to concentrate on the battle. Luciana asked him, is he saying this after all the achievements of their army? Then let him be calm, the demon lord has nothing to worry about. She asked him again about the oath and he gave in, saying that he would try. This answer suited the girl, but let him remember his promise. And she would pass it on to his bony demon assistant. And then she added that if something was bothering the protagonist, he could tell her without embarrassment. For example, something that he didn't dare tell his bony subordinate. MC simply told her that he trusted her. Luciana enthusiastically asked him to rely on her, and gathering all her might, she routed the enemy unit that was blocking their path. He thought that the girl must not have been completely satisfied with his answer, but she really wanted to cheer him up. He was surrounded by such beautiful vassals. She reported to him that the army was defeated and that she was no longer a hindrance to them. Apparently, they were saving their strength to defend the castle. The protagonist grinned. Brave enemies, but too naive. He decided to inform his assistant Grom about the intermediate results of the battle, and added that he would be back soon. After some training, he learned to move from one body to another without destroying the previous one. For the undead, this method of movement is more convenient and much less expensive than teleportation magic. But in any case, he turned into a black skeleton. It did not bother him much, but still bothered him a little. He appeared in his castle unnoticed by his assistant. When he called out to the demon, Grom was confused. Like, what is his master doing here? He joyfully rushed to meet him. He was happy to see his master. The protagonist replied that he had come to report to him on their progress. Everything was going according to plan, and they would soon reach the capital. Grom exclaimed that he had expected nothing less from him. The pathetic humans had no chance against his lord's army, and he had foreseen that things would turn out this way. The MC continued that they would probably return home tomorrow. Let the demon continue to guard the capital. Grom assured him that this would be the case, and that they would raise their glasses upon his return. The protagonist returned to the battlefield and noted with satisfaction that the battle was nearing its end. Luciana flew up to him, and after he asked how the situation was, she reported to him that their army had captured most of the capital. But there was one small problem. The prisoners had broken out of their dungeon and were carrying the dead away one after another. It looked like they would need reinforcements. The protagonist was surprised by this. He assumed that the battle could drag on, but the most problematic would be the siege of the castle. And here are the prisoners. It seems that the contingent there is indomitable. I wonder how many of them are there? She frowned and answered him that only one prisoner stood up to an entire army of demons and smashed it to pieces. She dared to assume that he is comparable in strength to the hero. The girl remembered how the prisoner behaved, screaming when he was throwing the undead. He screamed that they would not have enough undead to defeat him. MC was surprised. Only one prisoner comparable to the hero. At the moment when the world was in danger, a hero appeared, as if fate itself did not want to put up with the existence of evil. At least, that was how it was before. Heroes were created to defeat evil. The heavens themselves favored this. Luciana asked MC if he suspected someone. If he was that strong, MC must be familiar with him. He told her that he had someone in mind. Perhaps the one he was thinking of was thrown into prison before the war with the demon lord escalated. Being too willful and unbridled, this guy ignored all the rules of order and committed countless crimes. You could say he was almost a daredevil. He introduced himself to everyone as Henry Bracken. The protagonist flew up to the prisoner and he asked MC if he, the black skeleton, was the leader of these undead. He added that he was tired of fighting weaklings and offered the protagonist to fight him one-on-one. He told him that he did not have time to fight him. But then the prisoner struck him with such a crushing force that he was thrown aside, and the girl began to worry about him. Henry laughed mockingly, like, how weak he is, let him pull himself together, they will have fun yet. The protagonist got angry at him and launched his fireball at him. Luciana asked him if he was okay. MC assured her that everything was fine. He thought that the guy did not have any magic at all. He broke through his defense, relying only on his physical strength, and he stopped the fireball with his bare hands. At this time, Henry told him that he almost turned him into a kebab. The girl was perplexed. What kind of monster is this? The protagonist said that his power surpasses the hero's in strength. As far as he knows, he is so strong that they wanted to send him to the demon lord to subdue him. He is an invincible fighter, in his strength the closest to the killer of the demon king. The protagonist noticed that Henry was preparing for another fight and asked the girl to move to a safe distance. MC began to inflict invisible attacks on him, noting to himself that the guy was good at dodging them. His fighting style is as simple as 2 and 2. Take an enemy blow, showing incredible endurance, and then drive the enemy into a corner with his monstrous strength. He reacts intuitively, dodging even sudden attacks. The protagonist realized that ordinary magic would not help in his case. He does not have any unique abilities and does not own magic, and yet, he is incredibly strong. Continued to fight him, noticing that this man did not have a hint of weakness. Henry muttered that he did not like this atmosphere, as if it was some kind of mustiness. MC understood that a mere mortal would have turned into a ghoul long ago. Perhaps this guy's vitality prevents his body from decomposing. It turns out that this is a person who is not affected by miasma. Suddenly, the protagonist stopped for Henry, and offered him to make a bet. The guy was surprised. What was he offering him? Dwight offered him that the winner of the duel would receive a reward. If he won, Henry would join his army. Otherwise, he would fulfill any of his wishes within his capabilities. MC knew that he had the character of a typical bandit, so it would probably be possible to negotiate with him. In addition, he heard that despite his hot-headedness, sometimes he was surprisingly decent. He had served 10 years in prison on principle, although he could escape at any moment. The protagonist asked him what he would say to his offer. Henry replied that then the reward for his victory would be his army of demons. Now he was free, but he was not sure what he would do next in life. And challenging the whole world and starting a war sounded fun. Dwight thought that he knew, of course, that the guy was antisocial, but not that much. Henry continued that demon lords don't throw around such statements on a whim. He doesn't think MC is fit for the post. So he's serious? The protagonist thought, well, of course, no one else can take this place. He asked Henry if there would be a bet or not. He was waiting for his answer. The guy smiled in response. How could he refuse such a tempting offer? It's time to determine the winner as soon as possible. They started the fight. MC sent a shockwave at Henry. It covers quite a large area, and he won't be able to dodge it. Indeed, the guy noted that he has an unpleasant technique. The protagonist noted that his incredible desire to win, his oppressive warrior's gaze, and his strength are beyond imagination. In his past life, Dwight wouldn't hold a candle to him. He continued to strike his opponent with blow after blow, and the guy could hardly dodge them. But he still managed to tear off the demon lord's arms. But the protagonist did not give up. He attacked Henry more and more. He asked MC if he really could do that. The protagonist answered that, unfortunately, the harsh truth is that losing limbs is nothing to the undead. He can continue to fight, not to mention that he does not feel pain. Dwight intensified his attacks on the guy. He wanted to overwhelm him with countless attacks so that he would not have time to come to his senses. Then, both his impressive physical abilities and excellent combat intuition would be useless. Now the protagonist can do it. He sent a shockwave of a direct hit on Henry, and the guy barely survived. MC was surprised that he survived even after a direct hit. He thought that in fact he was not destined to understand him. The protagonist used the tactic of layering curses. Henry exclaimed, "Is he kidding me?" MC knew that he should not escape from such a reception. And indeed, the guy was shackled with chains and shackles. He wondered what kind of nonsense this was. It was no longer funny. Dwight stood over the defeated Henry and asked him, well, victory is his. Does he agree? The guy had no choice but to agree. An argument is an argument. The protagonist declared that from now on he was his servant. He asked him if he had any objections. The strongman answered that he had no objections and added that he and the general would work together. MC freed him from the shackles and helped him up. They walked, and the protagonist kept thinking about Henry. Perhaps, at one time, he also tried to defeat the previous Lord of Demons, like him and Claire. When the world is in danger, a hero appears, as if fate itself does not want to put up with the existence of evil. This has been the case at any time and in any era. When they entered the defeated city, Luciana happily greeted him. She noted that he was safe and sound. The protagonist replied, "Of course. How could he die here?" He saw the men kneeling and asked the girl, who were they? The girl replied that these guys were the leaders of this country. She had enchanted them to the depths of their souls, and now they were puppets who would never go against his word. MC chuckled and said, "Well, this is the peculiarity of succubi." Well, she had done a good job. In this state, he would easily extract the information he needed from them and find out who had instigated them to oppose him. The girl finally noticed Henry, noting to herself how clean he had become. She asked the protagonist, had he persuaded him to their side? Well, that was a sound decision. The guy smiled at her. Raising his hand up, he expressed hope that they would work together. MC asked him, where was the thing he wanted to return? Henry guessed that they must have taken it from the treasure room on the top floor of the castle before they threw him in. They went up to the top floor and were amazed at the amount of treasure there. The girl exclaimed in delight that it was simply lovely, and judging by its appearance, she would not have said that this country was so rich. She tried on the tiara and asked the protagonist if this decoration suited her. He answered that they were not here for these trinkets. Henry exclaimed that he had found his thing and raised his bow. He explained that this bow was made of bone and a dragon's whisker. There was no other like it. Now MC understands why he wanted to return it? Dwight remembered that the guy was an archer. Despite his skills in hand-to-hand combat, his main specialization was long-range attacks. The guy offered him to shoot a bow. He just needed to find arrows for it. When he found the arrows, he went to the window, pulled the bowstring and fired into the air. The arrow flew a long distance and hit the building, creating an explosion. Henry was embarrassed, saying that he was very sorry. He had already forgotten how to shoot. The protagonist, on the contrary, noted that he was good. After all, arrows do not have destructive effects, such as the peculiarity of the bow. Such an explosion is the result of the discouraging skill of the guy. He asked him for an arrow without a bow. He saw Henry's surprise and explained to him that one arrow would be enough. With all his strength, he threw the arrow with his hand towards one village, where it created an explosion when it hit the target. The guy was shocked by what he saw, and Luciana happily noted that their lord was capable of much more. The villagers saw the explosion and realized that they were being attacked by a new demon lord. They panicked and looked for a place to evacuate. Some of them offered to surrender, but he was told that in any case they were finished. Some prayed, some asked for help. Reed Evans, a soldier of the squad, was looking for his sister. Finally he saw his sister and called out to her. Nina excitedly said that it seemed that they were being attacked by the demon lord. Reed told her that it was dangerous to stay here and that they needed to hide her in a safe place as soon as possible. She asked him what would happen to him. He told her that he was a soldier after all and had to protect everyone. Nina was very worried about her brother, because if the demon lord himself attacked them, he could die. He tried to calm her down, but she sadly told him that he was too weak. Reed told her that he might be weak, but if they held out, sooner or later a hero would appear who would defeat the demon lord, like 10 years ago. She shouldn't worry. He promised her that he would protect her with all his might. The sister smiled at her brother and said that she believed him. At that time, a corporal was looking for him so that Reed could return to his position, and he ran to carry out the commander's order. When the protagonist and his team returned to the city, Henry looked around it and was amazed that it had been turned into a real demon city. The protagonist asked him if he had ever been to the capital. The guy replied that he had been there when he was a mercenary, but he definitely liked what he saw now. The girl was angry with him. What kind of reaction was he having? This land was destroyed by demons. Wasn't he filled with indignation? Henry told her that in this world, people kill each other, so he didn't see the point in getting angry at the atrocities of demons. He added that it wasn't even a matter of race. Killers kill and their victims die, that's all. Luciana retorted sarcastically, saying what a sensible thought had come to him. He told her that he was very reasonable, otherwise he wouldn't have gone over to the side of the immortal demon lord. The protagonist watched them and thought that the girl accepted Henry in her own way. It was just wonderful that they were able to understand and accept each other. He wanted to create a relaxed atmosphere in his army where everyone would feel comfortable. They reached the castle, and the guy was amazed by its impressive appearance. He asked MC if he liked this type of castle. Dwight answered him that he didn't like it, but the one who created it, whom he left in charge. At that moment Grom ran out. He happily greeted his master and told him that he was really looking forward to his return. He knows that the Lord captured that country in such a short time, and he simply admires him. Then he noticed Henry and menacingly asked him who he was. Grom turned to the protagonist. Why is there a man next to him? MC calmed down his faithful servant and told him everything that happened. Henry waved his hand to the demon and inserted his favorite word, "We'll work together." But the monster didn't like the guy's behavior and he pulled him up, saying, "Let him not think of himself too much, and let him not dare to treat him so familiarly." Henry was confused, saying what a drastic change had happened to the demon. Luciana answered him not to take it to his head. Grom is always like this. The guy smiled and assumed that General Dwight was having a hard time. The monster was indignant when he heard the guy's address to MC. The protagonist thought that it seemed like the guy was just enjoying the monster's reaction. Although Grom behaved like a child, he was a good guy. He would never start a row that MC would have to get involved in. In this regard, the demon could be relied on more than anyone else. Meanwhile, Henry offered the demon a shooting duel. The winner would be able to call himself the best vassal. Grom agreed and threatened the guy that he would make him regret getting involved with him, and in the meantime, he could brag as much as he wanted. Luciana and the protagonist watched them, and the girl said that it all looked like a kindergarten pants with suspenders. They were swearing, and she was ashamed. MC did not pay attention to her. He was thinking about something of his own. After some time, the protagonist watched as Henry trained his army. It had been 50 days since Henry joined his army. Now he trains demons and teaches them to fight. He presented himself as a skilled instructor. The foundations he laid contributed to the strengthening of the protagonist's army's fighting power. He was also excellent at preventing internal strife. No one could compare to his destructive power. Enemy soldiers died tragically at his hands. All the demons began to look at him with respect, and it is quite possible that they revered him more than MC. Henry joined their ranks and gave confidence to his vassals. The protagonist understood that he was almost immortal, but not omnipotent. If he became arrogant, he could die. To prevent this from happening, he must strengthen his army even more. This is how he can lay the foundation for peace in the world. At this moment, warriors in the town were fighting the protagonist's army. The battle was unequal, and Reed, in the heat of the moment, killed his sister with his own hands, who appeared before him out of nowhere. The army of the new demon lord was victorious. All the warriors of a small country were destroyed. In the capital, Luciana reported to MC that she had bad news. She said that the lands of the destroyed small country were captured by its neighbors. Among them, there was a state that occupied its mining areas, from which they make a profit. MC was upset. These people were too comfortable. If he had known that everything would turn out like this, he would not have done anything. They were only counting on his army to wipe this state off the face of the earth so that they could seize its territories and resources. Well, nonsense. In vain do they take them for fools, because they have already collected information about the country that was pulling all the strings. Since they rule over the territories they destroyed, they need to attack them first. They are arrogant because 10 years ago humanity defeated the demon lord. Or are they hinting that they have developed something that can resist him? His thoughts were interrupted by Grom, who ran to his master in alarm. The protagonist asked him what happened. At this time, Reed woke up on the battlefield. He remembered what happened. Clutching his head, he swayed from side to side and asked himself, why? Why is everything like this? How could it happen that he killed his own sister? His memories of how he took her life were replaced by memories of their life. Nina always took care of him, worried about him, fed him, and he once gave her a ring. She was very happy to see him and never took it off. And now she is gone. He himself took the life of a person close to him. Grom at this time reported to the protagonist that a hero appeared. MC clicked his jaw and clarified with the demon, is everything really so? Deep in the kingdom that suffered from the attack of the demon lord, a soldier suddenly awakened. Even the endless stream of the dead could not break him. The dead he crushed were proof that he was the one worthy of the title of hero. Grom apologized to his lord for the bad news. He added that his subjects were dead. MC told him not to worry. It could not be otherwise, because their rival was a hero. When the demon asked why MC was not scared by this fact, he answered that he was a sage who fought side by side with the heroine. But this hero is unlikely to be like her, so there is nothing to be afraid of. Another hero has simply appeared who must lead the forces of good to victory. Grom asked him incredulously, saying that good will win? MC said that having protected this world once, he became the new demon lord, and now a hero of a new era has risen up against him. It seems like the universe wants to consign him to oblivion by hook or by crook. The loyal demon expressed concern about the protagonist's speech, but he continued that, of course, he was not going to sit idly by. He had a goal, and he would make it a reality in spite of the whole world. If he ignored what was happening, the hero would become stronger and would be too tough for him. As the saying goes, break a tree while it is young, so he would personally deal with the new hero. The protagonist turned to the monster. He entrusts support to him. Let him not let him down. Grom assured his master that he would try to be as useful to him as possible. MC ordered him to tell the news of Lucian and Henry. Dwight then approached the magic ball. He touched it and turned his thoughts to Claire, that he would have to come to blows with the new hero. It seems that he is gradually becoming a real demon lord. I wonder what Claire is thinking about when she looks at the current Dwight. Heroes are creatures that are loved by fate itself, so to speak. They grow, overcome difficulties, and perform miracles as if it were a matter of course. He had seen all of this with his own eyes. After that, he took the sword of his beloved and asked her permission to borrow it from her. Luciana came to him and he asked her if everything was ready. She answered him in the affirmative. They could set out at any time. He thought that she was very talented. He remembered how often he had fallen into her dead ends because of her cunning during the reign of the previous demon lord. She asked him what he was feeling now. She wanted to know what was in the demon lord's soul. He told her that everything was fine. He thought it could be called calm. Perhaps after death, his soul had become more callous. She looked at him and said, yes, he had become calmer, as if he had taken off his worldly shell, and not only that. The girl looked at his face more closely and asked him if he was smiling. The protagonist asked her in response if it was possible with such a face. She laughed in response to him, but it was true. It was impossible to smile with only bones. She added that he was really doing well. She was worried about him for nothing. He thought that Luciana was probably just as worried about him as Grom about having to fight the hero. He thought that she just wanted to kill time. He expressed regret for burdening the girl so much. But she suggested that he not worry about it. It was better to talk to her than to his vain monster. Grom spent hours rehearsing how to talk to the MC, where no one would see him. The protagonist thought that his loyal demon was racking his brains more than he thought. The girl added that compared to him, the archer didn't worry about anything at all. He kept whining that he wanted to taste the best meat in the capital. Dwight smirked. Well, that's just like him. If he thinks that there's nothing to worry about, then he can be trusted. MC told the girl that he was calm anyway. He thought that thanks to Lucian's care, it was as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders, and his determination had only strengthened. Now nothing could shake it. He said that as the Lord of Demons, all that was left for him to do was to fulfill his mission. The girl told him that he shouldn't be shy about asking her for help in difficult times. The protagonist told her that he would do so, which made her very happy. He thought that he couldn't even believe that they were once enemies. MC informed his army that so that the lives of his subjects would not be wasted, he would leave all living monsters in the capital. Only 2,000 undead and members of the command staff would go with him to pacify the hero. Everyone enthusiastically greeted the wise decision of their demon lord. He continued that enough words, it was time to move on to action. Night is coming soon, the time of immortal beings, and the sun is about to set, creating the perfect conditions for a surprise attack. A huge army approached the kingdom. According to the intelligence report, a hero appeared among them. The demon lord turned to Henry, who happily assured that he could be relied upon. Henry held a bow in his hands and took up a position and aimed. He stated that his shot would instantly wake everyone up. The arrow burst from the bow, destroying the tower, and it shattered into small pieces. If they continued to attack from a distance, the defenders of the fortress would start running out. They would be on guard, waiting for this opportunity. The protagonist then turned to Grom and said that he was next. Grom happily replied that he was ready to act. He stretched out his hands forward and began to scatter poison throughout the kingdom. The people panicked and shouted that the enemy was attacking and they needed to run as quickly as possible. One of them said that he could not breathe. Grom's poison spread quickly throughout the kingdom. The protagonist remarked that it was wonderful, simply wonderful. Grom was happy that the demon lord appreciated his efforts. Luciana approached the demon lord and asked if they should continue to blow up. He replied that they had to proceed according to plan. Suddenly, beams of light began to shine from the kingdom, blinding them. They began to squint, trying to get used to the bright light. A man appeared at the top of the fortress, and someone asked, "Have you appeared?" It was the hero named Reed. He raised his sword up, and then slammed the ground with such force that the shockwave reached the demon lord's army. After that, a column of dust rose into the air, and everyone froze in bewilderment. The demon lord said that they should focus on taking the fortress and call on him only in the most extreme cases, and he would distract the hero. Grom replied, "Yes, sir." He then wished everyone good luck. The demon lord's voice was heard behind the hero. He asked why he thinks he's a hero. He has something to do with him. Reed was furious and turned to the main character and tried to attack. MC used magic, creating a hand out of thin air and clenching the hero into a fist. MC said that if they fight here, everything here will be destroyed. The people nearby began to get indignant and call the demon lord a bastard, a scoundrel, and a beast. One of them said that they can defeat him. In response, the demon lord asked them not to interfere with him and turned them into dishonor. The hero furiously shouted, "Stop it, how dare he," and hit him on the hand. The demon lord threw him far into the field, a destructive force that eradicates evil. From his direct blow, their souls were split, and he is afraid that they will no longer be able to recover. It is obvious that this hero was created to destroy the demon lord. At this time, his army began an attack on the fortress. He can safely trust them to capture the fortress, and the rest depends on himself. He will try to go against his destiny and attack the hero. Many swords flew at Reed. The hero, seeing this, was perplexed and overcome with fear. He swung his sword and repelled the attack of the demon lord. Then the protagonist made another attack, but Reed managed to repel it again. Then the hero asked why he was doing this. He tried to buy time by talking to understand why the demon lord arranged this massacre. The protagonist answered that he was the demon lord. Reed said that because of him, many people died, and he lost his family. His sister became a ghoul, and he lost her. Before he could finish speaking, the demon lord said, "I see." His actions led to countless suffering, and the army of the dead continued to attack defenseless people. He himself personally killed someone with his magic and is perfectly aware of the sin he took on his soul. Reed lowered his head and laughed, then said that he had no conscience, like a true demon lord. Then he raised his head and looked at the protagonist, saying that he was the hero Reed Evans. He would destroy him, following his destiny. Reed, warlike and ready to fight, pointed his sword at the protagonist. The protagonist, seeing him, recognized himself in this young man because he had exactly the same look as he had in his youth. The protagonist, also armed with a sword, took a fighting stance. Reed, without thinking, attacked, rapidly approaching the demon lord. MC swung his sword, and the hero, unable to stay on his feet, flew to the side. Reed, furious, shouted that he was annoying him and rushed to attack again. But the demon lord parried the blow again. Their swords crossed, and Reed stood there, unable to contain his rage. The demon lord used magic to send a hail of swords at him, but Reed, without losing his head, deflected them all. His reaction speed increased with each passing second, as if this young man was improving his abilities right before his eyes. A just punisher, endowed with miraculous and incomprehensible power, overcame all adversity and defeated evil. A true hero. The protagonist remembered that Claire was the same. The protagonist inflicted a wound on him, and Reed's eye began to bleed. MC asked, "Scary, isn't it?" "There is no need to be ashamed, this feeling is familiar to everyone." MC, holding his sword in front of him, continued the duel. Reed's skills in handling a sword improved with each training in battle, and he was convinced of this when they crossed blades. The protagonist then pointed his sword at his opponent and stated that there was a power imbalance between them that he could not overcome. The protagonist demanded that he be quiet and warned that he would never forgive him. He struck, but the demon lord deflected it again. Reed appeared behind him and said, "That's it, demon lord. If he did not take action, the holy blade would destroy the current lord, and then the people would be trapped in a vicious cycle. In a world without a demon lord, they would start to see the protagonist as a threat, and he would end up either killed by someone or used as a weapon of mass destruction. Either way, there would be much bloodshed, and it would be done by his own people." However, such a future was not destined to come true. Their swords crossed again, and the demon lord pierced him, throwing him aside. The protagonist fell to his knees, bleeding. The current demon lord cannot die. The tale of good triumphing over evil is already outdated, and again he throws many swords at the hero. He, the demon lord, will show him what true despair is. For centuries, it was believed that good always triumphs over evil. However, this world is full of surprises. One day, an executed sage is reincarnated as the king of the undead and begins a new war. Reed, having gained strength, takes the sword in his hands and shouted, "The Demon King." The protagonist turned to him in surprise and asked Milling, "How were you able to rise again?" The hero begins an attack, but the demon lord reflects it. Then he throws Reed back and uses magic to throw many blades at him. This time, Reed cannot reflect them all. The demon lord approached him and said that it was all over. The battle was over. But Reed, having gathered his strength, says that it is not over yet. If he dies now, the world will be at peace. The demon lord interrupts him and says that this is complete nonsense. Claire Barton and Dwight Garvelt, has he heard of these names? The hero replies that about 10 years ago they killed the then Demon King and saved the world. However, they then tried to take his power and were executed. They are fallen heroes who sacrificed their lives to save the world. Reed asks the demon lord why he asks this question. He replies that he is trying to destroy the ideals that the hero believes in. Killing the Demon King seemed like the perfect way to bring peace to the land, but the plan did not work. The hero asks what he means. He replies that their attempt failed. He still remembers the pain in his eye and chest, although they are no longer there. He then says that this world is so cruel and filled with despair that it does not care about the ideals of the hero. Even if Reed could defeat his undead on this battlefield, he has already experienced the bitterness of despair, right? He understands the meaning of the protagonist's words. Very soon his life will leave this world. However, MC will inherit his desire to bring peace to the earth. Even if this is not the main goal of the hero, Reed does not quite understand what MC is talking about. He understands why he received this power, and he will not abuse it, as past heroes did. He needs this power for the sake of the world and all people. Suddenly, the hero fell silent. The protagonist, approaching him, thought that he had finally died. He reached out his hand to his head, but the hero grabbed him and shouted that he would never give up. Taking the sword in his hand, he tried to attack the protagonist, but his attempt failed. This time, MC finally finished him off. And then the hero remembered what his sister told him. She was worried that if this was really the Demon King, he would have to fight him. Her little brother became a hero and tried his best to keep her from laughing at how weak he was. The hero, who had broken his promise, asked for forgiveness. The protagonist, approaching him, looked at the sword, and at that moment the sword began to dissolve into thin air. The hero, looking at MC for the last time, sighed for the last time, and finally died. Meanwhile, the kingdom was captured by his subordinates. Henry approached Grom and asked how things were going. Grom replied that the archers had already completed their task, and then asked why Henry was covered in blood. Henry explained that it was not his blood. Grom mentioned that the demon lord was delayed, and Henry asked if the hero had killed him. Grom began to shout at him furiously and said, "What kind of joke is this? No matter how you look at it, it is impossible." At that moment, the protagonist appeared and walked towards them. Grom exclaimed, "Lord," and asked if there were any wounds on his precious body. The protagonist replied that there were no serious wounds, he was fine. Grom noted that the most important thing for him was his integrity. Henry scratched his head in confusion. He expressed a desire to measure his strength with the hero and asked, was he very strong? The protagonist confirmed that yes, the hero was a powerful man worthy of this title. Henry admitted that he envied him. At that moment, Luciana appeared and jumped on MC, exclaiming, "Lord, he is so cool, defeated the hero, a worthy feat for the Lord of Demons." The protagonist was surprised why she was so happy. Luciana explained that the previous Demon King could not defeat the hero and lost to him. The protagonist agreed with this. Luciana reported that the fortress was captured down to the last brick and asked what to do next. MC replied that the army had completed its task and they should turn back and move as soon as possible. The entire kingdom was destroyed and there were no survivors left. Reed was doing his best to bear the hero's responsibility and restore justice. The world no doubt longed for the victory of this boy, who sincerely sought peace. The protagonist overcame the fate of destruction. MC, standing and looking at the starry sky, turned to the heroine. He confesses that, as the Demon King, he was able to kill the hero. His actions are contrary to the flow of time. However, he continues to follow the chosen path. For the sake of world peace to flourish, he is ready to make any sacrifice. Meanwhile, in the forest, the Astley team was attacked. Olivia begs the Lord to stop these atrocities if he does not despise humans. They return to their kingdom. The hero fought with one of his subordinates and told them to calm their hearts, because their bloodlust was visible to the naked eye. But they acted in concert, and if they relied only on the undead army, they would be torn apart like a rag. They are his support, and he hopes that if they train separately, they will become even stronger. That was the end of it. The hero died, and the entire kingdom became the territory of the Demon Lord, disappearing from the face of the earth. This news instantly spread throughout the world and probably caused heated debates in all countries. Some of them will probably form alliances to oppose the Demon Lord. But it doesn't matter. He plans to deal a devastating blow to those countries that will pit others against each other and only pursue their own benefits. Luciana handed the report sheet to the protagonist. MC took it and read it, then said that he thought so and asked, "Is this the country?" Luciana replied that the spy was able to find accurate evidence. He identified the main culprit who provided military support to a small country and started a war with the Demon Lord's army. The Empire is a strong power that has grown by absorbing neighboring countries. In terms of strength in war, it is in the same position as the current Demon Lord's lands. Its characteristic is arrogance and discrimination, and it is known for its strong discord with other countries. The Demon Lord said that they would attack them as soon as all preparations were completed. At that moment, Grom came running and shouted, "Lord!" MC asks, "What's the matter?" Grom replied that a certain group of people were crossing the Demon Lord's territory. The protagonist put his hand to his chin and asked, "A certain group of people, huh? Come to think of it, they might be spies from other countries." He then asked how many there were. Grom replied that there were about 30. The protagonist said, 30, huh? That's a lot for individuals, but not enough for an army, and if they were spies they would have come in smaller numbers. Then what could it be? He then asked Grom if he found out who it was. Grom replied, yes. The protagonist suddenly appeared in front of the elves, causing them to exclaim in surprise, "What? This can't be." He guessed that it was probably a group of elves living in the forest of world trees. The protagonist stood in front of them, and archers were aimed at him. He told them to wait, as he was not going to fight them. These creatures, the half-humans, the elves, except for a few weirdos, were in conflict with humans. The protagonist thought that it was a shame that he appeared in front of them so suddenly. Then he asked who would speak on their behalf. He wanted to negotiate, and then Olivia came out, pushing the archers aside. She said that she was the deputy elder and represented this group. Her name was Olivia. She asked, "Jet Black Skeleton, are you the immortal demon lord?" Everyone stood in horror, sweat pouring down their faces. MC asked why they visited his lands. Olivia began to tell them that an army of people had invaded the forest of world trees, putting it in danger. She begged him to help them. About 10 days ago, an army of people came to their forest and asked them to hand over the world trees. The elves refused. For them, the wealth of the forest is sacred, and they cannot just give it to someone else. But a few days later, an army of people began to cut down the forest without their knowledge. They immediately began to repel their attack, but were unable to give them a worthy rebuff. They found themselves in a deplorable situation. The demon lord asked, so they came to beg for help from the current demon lord? Olivia said yes, and that they had heard rumors that the demon lord especially despised humans. They thought that if that was true, then he should help the half-human elves. The protagonist thought that he had really only exterminated humans so far, so that was why such rumors had spread. He asked which country had attacked them. Olivia said confidently, Empire. She saw the image on the flag and there was no doubt about it. The protagonist also thought, Empire. This country has always discriminated against humans, but to this extent, what is their goal? The trees of the World Tree Forest have hidden powerful spirit power, a weapon that can become a weak point for his undead. In other words, it is a countermeasure against the Demon Lord. Meanwhile, in the forest itself, the man laughed, talking about what happened to this beautiful place. Most of the trees were felled, and the elves were turned into slaves. What a tragedy. But they have no other choice. Only this way will other countries agree with them. Great justice requires great sacrifices. But they can rest assured, these sacrifices will not be in vain. They will definitely destroy the Demon Lord. The protagonist thought that if they needed resources so much, they could officially apply for the alliance, but they only think about their own country. They are not afraid to break the laws and invade the forest. How long would they trample on his ideals? Olivia and her party knelt before the Demon Lord. She said that they understood the risk of relying on him, but she asked him to save the elves. The Demon Lord replied that he rejected their request. Olivia raised her head, and horror overwhelmed her. He then went on to say that up until now he had only destroyed humans, and that it was only a consequence of circumstances. He had no desire to help the demi-humans. Olivia began to cry in despair. In his previous life, he would have definitely extended a helping hand to them, but now he could not do so. If the Demon Lord was perceived as siding with the demi-humans, it could provoke a war between the humans and demi-humans. He could not allow that to happen. If he began to support one side or the other, the entire image he had worked so hard to build would be destroyed. He could not become a Demon Lord who saved others' lives. He intends to rule until the end, taking them from others. Then he approached Olivia and said that they had only one way to resist the Empire. Olivia began to cry, screaming that they were ready to do anything, if only their people would survive. MC, spreading his arms, said, enslavement. He offered the elves to acknowledge his authority over them, and then he would be able to repel the attack of the Empire. He had no intention of helping the elves. He was eager to fight the Empire, seeking revenge for his suffering. Olivia asked, what about the elves? He replied that he didn't care if the Empire planned to exterminate the elves. His proposal was just a joke. If he turned the elves into his slaves and saved them, it would look like he helped them not because they were half-humans, but because they were his subordinates. Olivia asked if their people would be saved if they agreed to his terms. He assured them that they could rest assured that he would put an end to the Imperial army and turn tens of thousands of soldiers into mountains of the dead. However, it was worth considering how the world would perceive this news. Olivia asked what he meant. The protagonist explained that when they became the Demon Lord's slaves forever, they would be called a nation of scoundrels, traitors who had taken the path of evil to save their precious lives. And it would be almost impossible to wash away this shame. Would the proud elves be able to withstand such humiliation? Olivia, sitting on her knees, opened her mouth and looked at him in surprise. Then she closed her eyes and clenched her teeth. After some time, MC returned to his kingdom. Grom met him and shouted, welcome back. Then he asked why that group had come. The protagonist replied that they had become his property. After that, he gave the order to form troops and invite Henry. Now he would begin to destroy the Imperial army. Grom said, keep it up, Lord, and the order will be carried out immediately. Olivia then turned to MC and said that she wanted to return to the forest and report what happened. The protagonist agreed to go with her. The Forest of World Trees is a land that rejects immortals. The entire forest is filled with sacred energy emitted by the trees. When they approached the forest, MC looked at his hand and said that he felt a slight pain. They were standing in front of this forest. Until that moment, he did not notice that he had one weakness left that could not be gotten rid of. A man stood in the forest and looked at them. Would he be able to stop in front of him? The Lord of Demons? The protagonist remembered the first time he came here. He was asked, the Forest of World Trees? He replied that this forest was filled with the power of spirits, and if they could borrow it, that would be wonderful. But he was interrupted and told that this was unacceptable. In their world, there are lands that cannot be touched, and the Forest of World Trees is one of such lands. Another operation by Lucian's army ended in defeat. If this continues, they will not be able to protect their people. This is a dead end, and the entire operation needs to be rebuilt. Logan thinks that nothing bad will happen if they use the power of the forest. Mobilizing the elves wouldn't be so bad either. Let them feel how hard it is for them. The protagonist noted that Logan does not have a very good sense of humor, to which Logan replied that he is not joking. They really got to him. The protagonist said that Logan is right, as always. The heroine is against this idea. Logan asked if he could go against the woman he loves, to which the protagonist replied, no, she usually sees the essence of the problem, but since he decided to fight with her to bring back peace, he will not seek compromises. Logan approached the hero and said that he had nothing against his character, but he took on too much. He asked him to at least sometimes rely on his friends. The hero replied that he understood him and thanked him. That's where his memories ended. And here Logan stands in front of him. The protagonist said that it was unlikely that his eyes were deceiving him. In life, he was one of the few friends. He got tired of his native village, so he moved to the city. So why is he here? Logan asked what all this meant. MC was in the crosshairs of archers. Many archers were sitting in the trees and keeping him in their crosshairs. The protagonist noticed this and thought that they reacted quickly, spotted them with a reconnaissance spell. Olivia shouted for him to stop. Apparently, they were also given an order from someone who can ignore the words of the elder. Logan asked if he was the king of the undead. The protagonist replied that he was, and he would explain what was happening. For now, it is not profitable for him to reveal his identity, and yes, for now he is just the king of demons.